Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Happy December. I am so thrilled that it's finally December, and today we're going to talk about all the books I read in November. So grab a drink and let's get started. I read 8 books in November. That seems to be the average, around the average that I've been reading lately. Not mad about it, but it used to be more. So don't know what that's about. Although November was a crazy month, so there's that. First book I read in November was such a delightful surprise because I did not know about it until November 2nd, and that is Frederick Bachman's new short story called The Answer Is No. Literally, I woke up that morning, I think it was a Saturday, I log into Instagram, it's the first post I see is him announcing this book, that it is releasing in December, so actually it's out now. But for Canada and US, I believe, you were able to get it ahead of time on Kindle Unlimited, or was it just Kindle? I'm not sure. I checked out so fast. It was like $3 and I read it that morning, and it was the most beautiful morning that I've had in a long time. So this is a short story about a man named Lucas who, I mean, a lot of his characters are really grumpy people, and Lucas is just kind of like that, just very grumpy. Doesn't want to associate with anybody, wants to just work, live his life, and not talk to anybody, kind of living in solitude. Basically, what happens is there is a frying pan that is left outside, and his condo building, what are they called? Like the admin people kind of come around asking everyone who threw out this frying pan because it wasn't thrown out properly. And he's like, I don't know and I don't care. But then he starts giving these people ideas of who to look for or what to look for, and then they kind of make him be involved in this. And then the next day, there's another piece of garbage left with the frying pan, and this pile of garbage accumulates, and then you get a lot more people, more neighbors involved, and everyone except for one person doesn't have a name. They have like a nickname that Lucas gives them. It's just hilarious. Frederick Bachman can write about taxes, and I would read it. He could write about the most boring thing possible, and I would eat it up every single time. So I loved this. I thought it was so funny. It was so heartwarming. Such a stupid concept, yet it had such meaning behind it by the end of the story. There was such good touches on friendship, just connection and community. It was just so good. And there was cat cameos, which I love cat cameos. So if you could not tell already, I gave this 5 stars. It was one of the easiest 5 stars I've given in a very long time. So highly recommend it. It was like 70 pages long. Such a great way to just spend your morning reading. I think I read it within 2 hours. It was just so good. I loved it. The next book I read was Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. I feel like everyone's read this by now, and I also gave this 5 stars. I sat and reflected on this for weeks. I actually did not write my review in my reading journal until 3 weeks after I finished reading this. I took my time with this book. I really savored it. I think I read it over the span of almost a month, which I don't do very often with many books. And I did also read this physically and listen to the audiobook tandemly, so I kind of went back and forth, and I really enjoyed that experience. The audiobook is also very good, but there were times where I had to stop the audiobook, grab my book so that I could underline specific sections that really spoke to me. So this book is exploring the relationship between 2 brothers, Peter and Ivan. You're following along both of them. You are in both of their POVs, but Sally Rooney's writing is 3rd person, but you just know whose POV you're in based on the writing. And they kind of have an estranged relationship, but then their father dies, so they kind of connect together because of that. But then also you just see what happens after their father dies, the grief they both go through, and honestly, their life. It's such a quiet book, is like just what I feel when I think about this book, yet it is so impactful. Some may say it's boring, but I really liked it. And I loved and hated both brothers. I mean, Ivan is a lot easier to love, I find, than Peter, but they both have their flaws and things to work on, and it's just very real. And of course, the touches on grief, especially losing a father, just hits so close to home. So those parts just really, really impacted me in good and bad ways. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this book. This is actually only my second book I read by her. I thought I read more books, but I looked back. I only read Normal People, and I actually listened to that as an audiobook. So I actually have a copy of Normal People that I think I will reread maybe in the next year or so, that I just want to read and not listen, because I think that also changes the experience, because her writing is just so beautiful. I find anytime I have an author where their writing makes me stop to reflect or kind of absorb a sentence or a paragraph or a moment, that is a clear indication to me that I need to be physically reading the book rather than listening to the audiobook, because then those moments are not as impactful for me. And Sally Rooney is one of those authors. So amazing book. I really, really enjoyed it. I think it was very, very good, and I just feel like I could relate to it very well. There was also a lot about family and brotherhood here, which obviously I'm not a brother, but like I have brothers, I have sisters, I have a big family, and the relationships are not always clear cut, not always easygoing, and they can be very, very complicated. And it's just such a honest look and view on life and the complications of relationships in life. So I have nothing else to say. Really, really enjoyed this one. Next book I read was an audiobook, and that was Feel Good Productivity by Ali Abdaal, who is actually a YouTuber. So this is his first debut novel, and it is a nonfiction about productivity. I wouldn't really say it's self-help, but it is in some ways. And I gave this 3.5 stars. I think this was a fantastic book about productivity and a very healthy way of looking at productivity and just what it means to be productive and why we want to be productive, and kind of putting a why behind everything we do in life and our careers and habits and all of these things. And this book really takes a lot of productivity concepts that are explored in several other books and combines them into one. So I think if this is a topic that you're interested in and haven't read many books about, you will take a lot out of this book. But as someone who has read a lot of productivity books, a lot of it was not news to me, and it wasn't a new concept, but it was a great refresher, and I think his approach was just really, really good. Spice is here and just really wants attention right now. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I just don't think it was life-changing, but I can see it being very impactful to those who just have not read many books about productivity and want to kind of dive into the topic of it in a healthy and meaningful way. The next book I read was Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the third book in the Done and Dusted series. No, Rebel Blue Ranch series. Oh my gosh, I adored this book. I'm giving this 4.5 stars. It was close to 5 stars, but I still loved book 1, which was Done and Dusted, more. But this was very, very close. So this explores Teddy and Gus. Gus is Emmy's brother, and Emmy is the protagonist in book 1. And Teddy is her best friend, and this is the romance between them two. And they kind of have a enemies to lovers romance, but it's just not that deep. But they have such good banter. I loved the way that they just flowed together so well in this book. He's a single dad, but the mother is in the picture. It's just a very healthy dynamic. And I just like really loved their dynamic between each other. It just worked so well. I just had such a good time reading this. I was also really stressed while reading this book, so it took me out of reality every time I read this, and I really appreciated it for that. One thing that I just did not like about this book that I wish was explored a little bit more is Teddy's career. So something happens with her career in this book, and at the end you see a resolution to it, but you don't see the steps that she took to get there. It was just more told to you at the end of the book, but the whole book there's nothing that really is done to get to that resolution. So I feel like there was that gap there that I wish was a part of the story. But other than that, I really don't have anything bad to say about this book. I loved it, and I'm so sad that the series is ending. The next book comes out next year. I have it on pre-order already. But yeah, I've just really enjoyed Lila Sage's books, and I'm so happy that this was better than book 2, because that one I didn't love as much. The next book I read was a novella, a Christmas novella, and that was Spectacular by Stephanie Garber. This is a Caraval novella, and I didn't know what to think going into this book because I was not obsessed with Caraval, but I loved the Once Upon a Broken Heart series. That series is one of my favorite series of all time. But it's Christmas, like I wanted to get in the Christmas mood. I got the hold from my library so fast, so I was just like, let's read it. It's quick and easy. And I was hoping it would be like with Scarlett and Julian and hints of Jax in it, but it was more so a story about Tella and Legend. It was okay. Like I loved the Christmassy parts of it. I loved like the mystery of Tella trying to find Legend perfect Christmas gift and all of these things, but it also felt a little silly to me, and it was like Christmassy and fun, but Tella is just such an insecure person that I was like, at some parts of the book I was like, get over yourself. I also read it like within a couple sittings. It was very festive and fun in that sense, and it just put me in the Christmas spirit. So I don't really have anything horrible to say about it, but I didn't love it. So if I didn't say already, I gave this 3.5 stars. The next book I read was Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young, and I was so pleasantly surprised about this book. I was recommended this book by a couple of my friends, and I just had it on my Kobo for months and months and months, and I just decided, okay, let me just pick it up and start reading it. And I loved this book. I loved the writing, first of all. It was so beautiful and like powerful. Every sentence felt meaningful. It had a purpose, and it just was explained really well. I loved the writing, and I loved Win and Bo. So this is a accidental pregnancy trope. So Win is a girl who has a disability, so she has like an underdeveloped hand that she was born with, and you're kind of following along her, just no really meaning in her career and life, and she's all about like one night stands, not about relationships. And then Bo is like a friend of a friend, where they meet at a party, and he actually is amputee, so one of his legs is missing, and they have a night of fun on Halloween, and then she finds out she's pregnant, and you go from there. And I just feel like this trope was executed so well in this book. I loved their relationship. I loved the exploration of like family. Like the side characters were such good side characters. The friendships in this book were amazing. And I just like overall had a good time. It was a little bit unbelievable because Bo is super rich. I was like, that's so convenient. But yeah, I just really had a good time. I gave this 4 stars. It wasn't like the best romance I've ever read, but it far exceeded my expectations, and I just really enjoyed it, and I would definitely recommend it. Next book I read was Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. So this is the second book in the Villains series, which apparently is a series. So I thought it was just a duology, but apparently there is going to be a book 3. I don't know when. But I listened to this as an audiobook. I finally picked it up. I didn't love Vicious, but I did enjoy it, so I gave that one 4 stars. I'm giving Vengeful 3.5 stars. You know, I did like this book because I loved the characters, and I was intrigued to see where the story goes, because it wasn't like Vicious ended off on a cliffhanger, but you know, it wasn't tied up perfectly either. When I picked up this book, I was like, let's just see where this goes. And at one point in the book, I was like, what is the point of this story? Like, I don't get it. You get introduced to more characters, and I just feel like where book 1 was a lot about Eli and Victor, book 2, you barely get them interacting together, and that's what I loved about book 1. And so because of that, I was not like obsessed, but I also, on the other hand, really enjoyed the new characters and thought they gave such a nice dynamic to the story as well. I just wasn't 100% there. I just didn't really like it as much, but I didn't hate it either. It was a very mixed bag. And by the end of the story, I was like, that was cool. Moving on. Mixed emotions there, but I was very, very engaged in the story. So yeah, 3.5 stars. A good story. I guess we'll see where it goes if book 3 ever comes out. And the last book I read was The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. Can you guys believe it? I finally started my Throne of Glass journey. And so I started the series with The Assassin's Blade, and this actually took me a few times to get into this book, and then I finally got into it. I actually read it mostly as an audiobook, and I think that really helped. And I really actually enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars, and I feel like this was such a good place to start because I feel like I understand Selena, pretty sure that's how you say her name, very well. I understand why she is the way she is, how she operates, and I do think that people don't suggest to start with this because you get some spoilers, but I think as someone who has just read this book, it is a good place to start because I am invested in her story and I want to know what happens next. This is a collection of, I think, 4 or 5 novellas. They all kind of intertwined together, which I really liked. I feel like the plot developed with every story and you got to know more and more about every character, and the ending is devastating, but I do have a theory about the ending, but I'm not going to say anything. And yeah, I just really had a good time and I'm very excited to continue this series. So let me know if you guys want any vlogs or anything about the series. I did not vlog my experience reading this book, but I can reading the rest of the series and put a video together. So excited about that. But that was the last book I read in November. So it was a pretty good reading month, I would say. I had fun. I hope you guys also had a good reading month in November. Let me know what you all read, and let me know if you've read any of the books that I read and what you thought about them. So thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope you have a fantastic day ahead, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!